Hey everybody, it's GoblinX and welcome back to some more Magic Arena, and today we'll be playing a quick drought of Innistrad Crimson Vow, which just got put back on Arena today. So without further ado, let's hop into this blast from the past, shall we? So Crimson Vow was a pretty bomb-heavy format. Some very classic, iconic, powerful bomb rares in the format include cards like Helena Elena, Averbrook Caretaker, Hullbreaker Horror, all kinds of nonsense like that, Anya, Maid of Honor, Olivia, Crimson Bride, tons of almost unbeatable rares and mythics in the format, so this is a format where it's really important to take good interaction highly, like Flame Blessed Bolt. That being said, the Flame Blessed Bolt doesn't really help stop any of those cards. This is also a format where the quality of your deck is pretty heavily determined by the quality of the rares you manage to pick up during the draft, and opening up a dig up is not a great way to start it off, so that out of the way, this pack is still pretty good. Again, there is that Flame Blessed Bolt. That's not going to stop any of the rares, but it's going to be really good against most commons and uncommons. It's going to deal with most 2, even 3 mana cards and exile them so they don't get any graveyard recursion, which is pretty prevalent in the format with cards like Disturb that can come back from the graveyard as auras. We also have Dormant Grove here, though, which I think I'm going to take. This is just a pretty ridiculous card in any kind of board stall, and even if you're not in a board stall, not too hard to flip this into that 3/6 vigilance. If you're in a board stall, though, this takes over the game where you keep getting a bigger and bigger and bigger board state just as you keep passing the turn, putting more counters on the board. So I like Dormant Grove a lot. Super powerful card, but there's also a good argument for Flame Blessed Bolt as just super cheap, efficient removal against more aggressive cards. But we'll take Dormant Grove to start it off, see where it goes from there. So pick 2. We don't have a great follow-up to Dormant Grove. Sporeback Wolf is fine. It's a nice filler 2-drop that can have really high toughness to go with that Grove, but the Wolfkin Outcast is pretty narrow. Definitely a card you want to be playing a lot of wolves and werewolves for it to be good. So kind of a narrow archetype, primarily just for green-red. Not a lot of other really exciting cards in the pack, so I'm going to go with the best uncommon, which is Whispering Wizard. This is 4 mana for a 3/2, and every time you cast a non-creature spell, you get to create a 1/1 Flying Spirit. You only get to do that once per turn, but it is still a very powerful card, primarily for like a blue-red spells deck. So we'll take the Whispering Wizard here. Again, it's kind of narrow, but it's not like there's anything powerful in this pack anyway. Pretty weak pack for pack 1, pick 2. Alright, we've got a pretty great follow-up to the Whispering Wizard. The Storm Chaser Drake here is a 2 mana 2/1 flyer, already perfectly playable, and if we target it without any of our spells, we get to draw a card. So with the Whispering Wizard, we get to be casting some of those auras, some of those cards with Disturb from our graveyard onto the Drake, drawing a card off the Drake, getting 1/1s off the Whispering Wizard. Both of these work well in blue-red spells or blue-white auras, blue-white Disturb, so pretty great place to start. There are other powerful cards in this pack, though. This is much better than our pack 2. There's like a Wolf Strike for decent green removal, Weaver Blossoms for great ramp in green, and then Celebrants for the best off-color card. But we're going to take Storm Chaser Drake after taking Whispering Wizard, see where we can go from there. So pack 1, pick 4, another slightly weaker pack. We've got a pretty good removal spell in white. We've got a decent Disturb card in blue. This is one of the slower ones, and the Disturb decks tend to have a lot of flyers in the first place, so the fact that this makes something unblockable by itself actually doesn't play that great. Because another one of the things that these Disturb decks can do is make a bunch of 1/1 flyers, so you actually end up wanting to attack with a bunch of creatures instead of with just one thing attacking alone. So Gutter Skulker actually hasn't played as good as it looks. It's still quite a solid card, and I might take it here, but I think I'm actually pretty safe to just take the Great White Removal spell here. Grab the Fierce Retribution. Pick 5 now, we have a Binding Geist. Perfectly reasonable for the Disturb deck. The one thing that's awkward about this is this Disturb card wants to attach the aura to an opposing creature instead of your own, so it doesn't work very well with Storm Chaser Drake. It does still work well with Whispering Wizard, and there's not much else going on in the pack. There's a red combat trick or a blue exploit card. I think we're more in the market for the Disturb card, even if it doesn't synergize perfectly with Storm Chaser Drake. Pack 1, pick 6, Flourishing Hunter is the best card in the pack, a huge way to stabilize late game in the green decks, and a great card alongside Dormant Grove. Taking this over Binding Geist as the only card that would make the cut for the blue deck, Alchemist Retrieval will be okay. we're not really missing out on that much by not taking a blue card here. So we'll stay open to the green potentially, taking the Flourishing Hunter. Pack 1, pick 7. Really great blue piece of interaction, I think is what we're supposed to take here. Tempted to take Kindly Ancestor, a very good card for the blue-white Disturb deck again. But Lunar Rejection, 4 mana, bounce a creature, draw a card. Pretty great, and if you're playing against wolves or werewolves, 2 mana bounce a creature, draw a card is absolutely absurd. This is a really efficient bounce spell that draws you a card, great tempo play. Just an excellent card in any blue deck. Even if we end up in blue-white Disturb, it'll be a good card. So we'll take the Lunar Rejection here to take the more open card. I don't think we'd take Flourishing Hunter here. It's mainly Ancestor and Rejection competing. Okay, pack 1, pick 8. Cradle of Safety is pretty great in a deck that is running the Storm Chaser Drake. We get to use this on our Storm Chaser Drake to counter an opposing removal spell, and of course, draw a card off the Drake's ability. Seems like straight up gas right there. Pack 1, pick 9. Wretched Throng is a card that's really fun if you can get a lot of copies of it, so I'll take that here. It's that or any other filler 2-drop. We could take Ancestral Anger and try to be the blue-red cantrips deck that just loops Ancestral Angers, targeting their Storm Chaser Drakes and the 2 mana 1/3 that damages your opponent when you cast a spell. That could be pretty fun. I feel like Wretched Throng's a little more likely to get played, but the Ancestral Anger will have higher upside if we end up in that blue-red deck. Yeah, I mean, I do need to get multiples of Throng, so I need to put more work into it, but with Anger I also am trying to get multiples. I do like the idea of that like blue-red spells deck. We've got a pretty good start for it here. If we can get the red cards, it could be pretty fun. I did already pass up on one of those 2 mana 1/3s though. The Flame Speaker or whatever. I don't know, it's a cool enough deck. I'll actually take Anger over Throng. I don't think Throng's like exceptional. It's just solid. Alright, now it's just blue cards. Steelclad Spirit or Repository Scab. Neither are super exciting. I'll just take the 2-drop and make sure we've got a decent early game blocker. Okay, now we'll take some random filler red card if we get to go down the blue-red path. There's the Kessig Flame Breather. That's one of the cards that makes the blue-red archetype shine. If you can get this with a bunch of Ancestral Angers, cast a bunch of non-creature spells, keep pinging your opponent, doing a bunch of extra damage. It could be a thing. Now we have a Sure Strike for a good red combat trick. That works very well with our Storm Chaser Drake. And another blue piece of interaction. Alright, here we are for pack 2, pick 1. I don't think any of the blue options are that great, the best one being Siphon Essence. Winged Portent is really fun if you can get it to pop up with your Whispering Wizards. I did do that one time. I've kind of already lived the dream, so I'm not going to take the really narrow card again, trying to do it again. Yeah, I've already done that one time. It was pretty cool. Don't need to do it again. We'll do Foreboding Statue is the most open card in the pack. It's a solid inclusion to any deck. I actually don't think it would be great in the blue-red build, though, because we don't really need the mana ramp, but most other archetypes it's going to fit in to almost any deck because it's colorless. I feel like a Braid would just be the best card if we end up in blue-red spells here, which is looking like the most likely thing. We do have one card deep into white, a couple cards deep into green potentially, but our green just doesn't synergize well with our blue. I think I want to take a Braid here and try to wheel the Flame Breather and become that blue-red Spellslinger deck. Take that efficient removal spell and go for it. We're also not married to red yet. I'm only married to blue, so I could take Bleed Dry or Hero's Downfall in black, try to push to that color pair, but I'm very tempted to try to just be the good Spellslinger deck, because our best blue cards, the Wizard and the Drake, are both for that Spellslinger deck. So let's take a Braid, try to become blue-red spells, and just go wild with it. Alright, Flame Breather should wheel more often than Reckless Impulse, so we'll take the Impulse as the decent card draw for this archetype. Now we have Frenzied Devils is theoretically okay for this archetype, but it's a 5-mana investment to get it on the board, and then you have to play more spells afterward. It's kind of hard to have leftover spells after you've already made it to 5 mana, so I actually don't like Frenzied Devils that much. Competing with Epic here, which is a pretty good 1-drop, lets us filter a land out late game, turn it into a non-land. I'm actually just going to take Epic here over Devils. I just don't think it's a very good card, even in the archetype that it's clearly designed for. We've got a second copy of Ancestral Anger, which is probably the pick. There's also a Chill of the Grave. It's a little tap a creature, draw a card spell. And Mysterious Blood Illness, the Vampire's Vengeance here. 2 damage to each non-vampire, create a blood token. So this will kill our own creatures as well, but it could be a decent control piece against non-vampire decks. Going to be a very bad draw against vampires, though. I think I'll just take another Ancestral Anger here. Now we have a pretty solid counterspell, the Geistlight Snare. 3 mana, counter something unless its controller pays 3. If you have any spirits or enchantments on board, it's even cheaper to play. Pretty solid counterspell, and the other options here are not very good. I guess we could take Serpentine Ambush. We could be the Serpentine Ambush Stormchaser Drake deck. With only 1 copy of Stormchaser Drake, I don't think this is very good on any of our other creatures. I guess all our other creatures are 1/1s or 1/3s as well. Just be completely front-loaded all combat tricks the deck with Serpentine Ambush over the Snare. I don't think I want that. I'm going to take Snare and have at least 1 counterspell in here. Now I'll take a Flame Breather over Siphon Essence, because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, we won't wheel a Flame Breather. It is an important enough card to scoop up here. It's going to be a fun deck. We're definitely just going all in here and hoping for the best. The one unfortunate thing being that we just haven't opened any bombs in this draft, so I think, you know, if you don't have bombs, just get as aggro as you can, try to kill your opponent before they play anything too scary. Probably where we're at here. Yeah, triple Flame Breather, double Cradle of Safety to protect them, quadruple Flame Breather. We've got a real archetype here. We even get that Frenzied Devils. I guess it'll be like the 23rd inclusion, that's fine. End the Festivities. It's pretty narrow, but there are some matchups where your opponent ends up with a bunch of 1/1 spirits on the board. Maybe they're blue-white Disturb, maybe they're blue-red spells with a Whispering Wizard. I still don't think I should main deck this. Probably just take another Combatants. But this is questionable. I've definitely gotten got by this card before, but that doesn't mean it's good, because I've also had games where I was playing Red-Green Werewolves or something, and my opponent probably just had this stuck in their hand doing absolutely nothing, which is horrible. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, I'll just take Combatants. Now we'll take a Serpentine Ambush. And hope to get some sweet cards in the final pack, but this is already a 24-card deck, so kind of already done. Final pack is just going to be for making the deck better. Unfortunately, just another unplayable rare. So we do not get to play any of the bombs that this format is well known for. It means we are kind of already starting from behind in every match, because most decks have at least 1 really scary bomb in this format. It's a super swingy format with some wildly powerful bombs. So now we just take a Sure Strike. I, again, don't think we're a Foreboding Statue deck. I think we're just slamming things down and casting a bunch of spells. We're not really ramping. So Sure Strike or Scattered Thoughts for card draw. Go for the Scattered Thoughts here. Fills a role that we don't have any other cards for yet. Ooh, and now a second Whispering Wizard? Alright, there we go. That definitely improves the deck a bunch. Second Lunar Rejection seems pretty good. The other options being Sure Strike or Cruel Witness or something. We'll take another Lunar Rejection. Another instant speed bounce spell that draws us a card. Lantern Bearer. I like Lantern Bearer a lot. A 1-mana 1/1 flyer to get aggressive with, and then after it dies, we can slap flying onto a Flame Breather or a Whispering Wizard or something, and that counts as playing a non-creature spell. I think Lantern Bearer is just a very, very good card, to the point where I will take it over Flame Breather or the really good card draw Thirst for Discovery, or another counterspell like Geistlight Snare. We're going to take the Lantern Bearer. We'll wheel one of these 3 cards and be pretty happy with whichever one it is. Okay, pretty much nothing here. I don't think I'll play 3 Cradles, but I guess I could. More likely than playing a Dreadlight Monstrosity. Another Lantern Bearer. I'll absolutely play a second copy of Lantern Bearer. Maybe a 2/3 Menace. Maybe it just gets cut. Same thing here. Maybe a 2/3 Menace. Maybe it just gets cut. Maybe a Repository Scab. Either of these probably just gets cut. I'll just throw a Scab in the sideboard, since I'm probably already putting the Villager there. Sure Strike. Yeah, Stormchaser Drake. We are wanting all those combat tricks, although I do only have the 1 Stormchaser Drake, so combat tricks when it's not targeting Stormchaser Drake just aren't that good. They're like, okay. I still want a high non-creature spell count. What is Witness the Future? Shuffle 4 cards from your grave into your library. then put 1 card from the top 4 into your hand. So it's 3 mana, draw 1 card out of the top 4. Probably not worth it. Could be okay for digging to Whispering Wizards, but I think I have better card draw with Scattered Thoughts and just cantrips like Lunar Rejection. I'm just going to take Sure Strike here. Now we'll take a Chill of the Grave. I don't know if that'll make the cut. Probably not. Already got double Sure Strike. Only got 2 Ancestral Angers. That's pretty sad. Take a Cruel Witness. Take the 5th copy of Flame Breather. We're happy to see that one. Throw some stuff in the sideboard and build this blue-red spells deck. Alright, so I think we want to build this deck around curving out as quickly as possible, just slamming out a bunch of Flame Breathers and playing a bunch of spells that draw a card. So I don't love like the 2 mana 3/3 Defender, the random 2 mana 2/2. We still have 6 2-drops and 3 1-drops if I cut those, so we'll just get rid of them immediately. I want to cut out some of the more expensive cards like Frenzied Devils. I also think Scab and Witness might be a little slow here. We're definitely going to cut down to like 15 lands max, I think. Be a real cantrip heavy deck. I don't love the Binding Geist. Honestly, I don't need that many creatures, and combatants trade pretty poorly. They hit as a 4/2 one time, but then just being a 2/2 for the rest of the game is really, really tiny. Plus, the first time we play them, even if they are attacking as a 4/2, they can just get blocked by a 2/2 and die, so I'm not mega into them. And again, we want to keep our non-creature slot super, super full in comparison to the creatures. So we do this, then we could cut 2 lands, be at 15. Average mana cost, 2.1. I might even want to try to do a 14 land build here and go really wild with it. And then we just cut 2 non-creatures probably, like a couple Sure Strikes. I think our other spells are just better, like Cradles, card draw from Angers, maybe a Retrieval here. Keep 1 Sure Strike. And cut a Retrieval. Also, I don't love the Geistlight Snare with Reckless Impulse. But I do like having 1 counterspell as a backup. There's only 1 card in our whole deck that punishes us for playing Impulse. Probably fine. But I guess I could go all in 0 interaction. Just double Sure Strike for pushing an extra damage and just don't care what our opponent's doing. Just be like, alright, play whatever you're going to play. I'm going to try to burn you out. That could be the thing. And it's kind of funny. Sure, I'm just going to let my opponent do whatever they want and hope that this pile can just outspeed it. I think I might like Retrieval better than Sure Strike if that's the case, because we bounce it back to their hand and slow them down. But yeah, we'll cut the Geistlight Snares because it just works bad with the Impulse. We'll just let them resolve their stuff and then just tap it down for a turn or put it back into their hand with Rejection or Retrieval. Just keep pinging them with the Flame Breathers and our little flyers. Yeah, we've definitely got a deck here. Pretty wild one for the return draft to Crimson Vow, but hopefully it's a good one. I think we go 7-7. Call it a deck. Alright, here we have a look at the deck we're going to be playing today. It is the all-in blue-red spells deck in Innistrad at Crimson Vow. We have 5 copies of Flame Breather as the main win condition with plenty of spells that will draw a card when we cast them. So we are trying to just slam these onto the board, bounce or tap down our opponent's creatures while we keep chipping at them with the Flame Breather's non-creature spell casting abilities. So tons of cards like Ancestral Anger that deal a little bit of extra damage and draw a card. Tons of combat tricks like Sure Strike, Serpentine Ambush, some Cradles of Safety to protect the Flame Breathers, the Whispering Wizards, the Storm Chaser Drakes, and then the Lunar Rejections, Alchemist Retrievals, Abrades to bounce and shoot down our opponent's creatures. Whispering Wizard is the bigger win condition than the Flame Breather. It's going to keep spitting out a Spirit every time we cast a spell, instead of just dealing 1 damage to our opponent. But overall, resolve one of these, protect them with Cradles of Safety, and burn our opponent out before they can play anything too deadly. That is the deck plan. That's what we're going to be doing today. Definitely fingers crossed. I don't think our draft pad was... We're definitely fingers crossed here. I don't think our draft pod was particularly powerful. I don't think we could have had any deck that was super great, super consistent here. There were no bombs pretty much at all. So I think this is about the best we can do here. is just play a really aggressive deck like this and hope not to run into too many bombs from our opponents. So we'll go ahead and head into the gameplay and see how it does. We unfortunately start off with a 1-lander with the wrong color of land. If this was a 1-lander with a mountain, it would potentially be keepable with the blood token from Epic here, but 1 island is not a keepable start to this game. Mulligan the hand, and there we go. 2-lander is perfect. Braid and Rejection for interaction. Probably get rid of the Chill of the Grave because we still have a Braid and Rejection there. Our opponent is on the play. They're going to start with a forest, so Lunar Rejection should be pretty sweet here. Can potentially bounce a wolf or a werewolf against a green deck. Toxic Scorpion is the first play, a 1/1 Death Toucher. That is annoying enough. We'll play the Storm Chaser Drake first and start hitting them in the sky instead of on the ground, since Flame Breather will just trade into the Scorpion. Take 1 damage from the Toxic Scorpion, and they're going to play a Gluttonous Guest. Yeah, it's going to be impossible to attack it on the ground against that kind of stuff. Alright, now I can go ahead and play a Flame Breather. So as I cast my spells, I deal an extra damage to my opponent, then cast an Ancestral Anger on the Storm Chaser Drake, draw a card from the Drake's ability, deal a damage from Flame Breather's ability, and then draw a card from Anger's ability. And we've got a lot of gas here as we hit them down to 16 and pass the turn. Toxic Scorpion's coming in, hitting us down to 18 life. Now a Catapult Fodder is the play. If they get 3 creatures with toughness greater than their power, they get to flip this into a 2/6 that can start throwing creatures at us, so pretty scary stuff. They need 1 more creature with higher toughness than power. Do I want to play the Whispering Wizard here, or just keep trying to burn with Flame Breather? Just go for the Reckless Impulse, see if we hit any other things to slap onto the Drake. It's a little too random, a little too high variance for me. I think I'm going to poke them with the Drake and play the Whispering Wizard. And then we'll go for the Impulse next turn after we have 3 different cards, potentially triggering off of all of our spells. All of our combat tricks at least, because we get to target the Drake with them. But either way, we'll have Wizard and Flame Breather triggering off of our non-creature spells. Alright, so opponent is going to sack the blood token, draw a card, puts them to 15 life, and they do play the Sharpshooter to flip to the Catapult Captain, so they can start making us lose a bunch of life every time they use that. Luckily we have good blockers on board, just block it with a 1/3, so they have to sack creatures to hit us with it, but they can hit us for a lot of damage out of nowhere. Okay, Serpentine Ambush. Buff the Storm Chaser Drake, hit for a ton of mana, or a ton of damage. They only have 1 mana up, so unlikely to find a good block for the Storm Chaser Drake. They can block with the Sharpshooter, but then we ambush in response. Would I rather ambush in response to them blocking with Sharpshooter, or just ambush right now and draw the card immediately? The awkward part is I want to play Reckless Impulse as well, but then if I hit other spells to play, I have to wait till next turn, because I'm going to use my 2 mana on ambush here. Yeah, let's just attack in an ambush, and then we can post-combat Lantern Bearer, I guess. We'll still trigger both of these cards. And draw a card off of Storm Chaser Drake. Yeah, there's no 1 black mana combat tricks or removal spells in this format as far as I remember. Our card is an island that we'll draw off the top. Not horrible, we can play that as our land for turn and hold up in a Braid now. Yeah, play the Lantern Bearer. I could just Impulse right now so that I have all the mana in the world for whatever I hit off of it next turn. I think I'll just hold up in a Braid though. Now we have 4 power in the sky. Our opponent no longer has any reach creatures. They do have a Courier Bat, but I can abrade that since we held it up. And I will. Best use of our mana, we get another flyer off of the Whispering Wizard and shoot them for damage off the Flame Breather. Of course, hit them a little harder because we've got another flyer coming in this turn. See what we get off of Reckless Impulse. Get a Fearful Villager. Well, I guess that's the play for the turn. Not a super exciting one, but we'll put it on board. Be ready to hit them a little harder. They're down to 7. Here's a Fearful Villager. We have an Alchemist's Retrieval, which we can't play for 2 mana, so we can't bounce any of their cards, but if they play a removal spell on one of our important creatures, we can just retrieval it for 1 now. Alright, so Sheltering Boughs, draw a card. Nothing else. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 damage in the sky. Just hit them for 6 and then kill them with Flame Breather, I guess. Witch's Web, gonna give that reach while we can bounce that back to their hand. And they will have no blockers and take 1 extra damage, and that'll be game. And there's the concession from our opponent. We're gonna start it off 1-0. The deck absolutely just firing on all cylinders for game 1. The one thing that went really well for us that game was our opponent not just having removal for Storm Chaser Drake. If they could have killed the Drake before I cast any spells on it, that game could have gone quite a bit differently. So that was our one fear there. See how things go as we move into round 2. Well, this will be an interesting one. We'll keep it here. Just play a couple Flame Breathers and start getting angry. Start getting mad about it. We'll go for it. Opponent is also on red. They probably have a Flame Blessed Bolt because they were thinking there with only 1 mana up. Not a lot of 1 red mana instants. The only one I can think of is the Flame Blessed Bolt. Luckily that card is not very good against our deck. Well, not very good against our Flame Breathers, not good against our opening hand. This is a lot of lands to draw in a 14 land deck this early. Could be flooding out here, we'll see. Alright, we do get a Lantern Bearer in the sky at least, that's nice. Get our damage in while they're tapped out with our Ancestral Anger. Weaver of Blossoms is the play that does buff the Ridge Wolf up to 3/2 status since they control another wolf or werewolf. Land number 6 has been drawn. We really don't want to see that in this deck. Most decks 6 mana is fine, but this deck with our 14 lands and our super low curve, 6 lands is really flooding out. They don't have any mana up, so we just sure strike whatever the Ridge Wolf blocks. Keep the rest of the damage in. It's probably our best line. But we have severely got to hit some gas here. If I hit any more lands, then we're just out of plays. I'm kind of out of attacks. And keep chipping in with Lantern Bearer, but that's 1 damage a turn against the 13 life opponent. Bocan Mariner is the play. Nice beefy werewolf. And there is the Flame Blessed Bolt that we knew about on the Lantern Bearer. Of course, we draw the Cradle of Safety to protect the Lantern Bearer a turn too late. And you do get really punished for missing land drops or flooding out against werewolf decks in this format. Because if you don't play any spells, either because you can't, because you don't have enough mana, or you can't because you don't have any spells to play, then you're just letting your opponent's cards flip without them having to put in any work to do it. One of the things I didn't love about that mechanic is it's very much an incredibly punishing mechanic that makes positions like Mana Flood and Mana Screw even worse. I kind of liked that the werewolves weren't very good in Innistrad Midnight Hunt, because it's kind of a frustrating mechanic where you just make your opponent's board bigger when you're already in a bad position like this. Yeah, this game looks pretty over here. We've drawn half our lands already. We might need to cut down to even like 13 or 12 in this deck. But we have hit half our lands in a little over a quarter of our deck, so... And just chalk it up to some amount of luck here. I don't think I should be playing that many less lands than this. Alright, yeah. That's just gonna happen. We drew more than half our lands and less than half our deck. Alright. We just can't block the Rip Hook Raider at all. So it just hits us for 7, because it can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or greater, so all we can do there is play a land, pass, and die. So 1/1 it'll be. Considering dropping to 13 lands, it still seems a little bit bold, because we do have the valuable Wizards that's 4 mana. And I don't really have any great non-land cards to put in. I guess I could put the Snare back in and go for 13, or put in another Sure Strike. This could be a 13 land deck. We could drop to just all 2 mana stuff, except for the Wizards. Drop a Villager and put in just a Ridgewolf and a Sure Strike. Or something. I mean, to be fair though, if we just drop 1 land, I don't think we win that game if we just draw 1 more land in that game. Or 1 more non-land. Like if I just hit another Sure Strike instead of one of those lands, I would still be really flooded overall. Don't think we could really change that. Yeah, I'll just run it back for game 3. Here we are on the play. No red source for the double Flame Breather. Feels pretty unkeepable. I think we got a mole here. Gonna keep this one. We have to hit 1 land really badly. But if we do, we've got a lot of good plays, and the really nice thing is that I can use my blood token from Epicure to discard the Lantern Bearer and draw a card, and still kind of have all these cards in hand. I probably should have gotten rid of Retrieval. I think that would have been a better card to dip. Just pass on. Alright, we do hit the land here. Yeah, I should have gotten rid of Alchemist Retrieval. That card's not really going to do anything, most likely. Alright, Wedding Invitation turn 2 from our opponent, so they're not putting anything on the board yet. We do get to just chip in the early game. We get to give a Flame Breather flying with the Lantern Bearer as well, to keep hitting later in the game. Getting a 2/4 flyer. Alright, I do have the 1 mana to retrieval my own Flame Breather. If they try to kill it, to protect our most important cards. I guess I could retrieval the Epicure, get another blood token later in the game. Just cycle the retrieval and a land into another card draw. Could be a thing. Gluttonous Guest from our opponent. Big old 1/4 blocker that also gains them life every time they sacrifice blood tokens. Okay. Can't really kill the Guest in any way. I'd love to have the mana to play the Bearer and hold up a Cradle of Safety. I guess I could abrade the Guest if they block the Flame Breather. I feel like I'd rather just get Lantern Bearer damage in here. How badly do I not want to put all my eggs in one basket? Because I could put Lantern Bearer on the Epicure and I would hit them just as hard this turn. I think I'm kind of cool with that. Like, I still hit them for 2 in the sky and 1 damage from Flame Breather. This way. The only part about this that doesn't work super well is if my opponent doesn't immediately kill my flyer next turn. Like, if they weren't just going to kill my Flame Breather next turn, then in the future, when I Cradle of Safety to save one of them, I might be like Cradle of Safetying the one that isn't going to be attacking, which is going to result in less damage overall. Whereas if I stacked it all into one card, like stacked it all into Flame Breather, if they didn't removal spell Flame Breather this exact turn, then I could Cradle when they do removal, and then it's like a 3-power flyer. We might just die to a Planeswalker here. against this Sorin.
Consider yourself fortunate our motives are
They get to make a token here. Okay, no, we can retrieval the token and kill the Sorin, or we can abrade it and kill the Sorin. Okay, no, we're fine. We are fine. The fear of God was put in my eyes when I saw my opponent played a bomb in Innistrad Crimson Vow. I'm like, that's usually game ending. And Sorin would usually be game ending, but luckily we can just kill Sorin immediately. This is like a tiny bit greedy, but I want to just play another Flame Breather for extra damage rather than hold up the Cradle to protect the Epicure here. Epicure's done its job, even if it dies. We're killing a Sorin with it. Which is some good stuff.
Things have not gone my way.
No, they have not, Sorin. Alright, opponent is digging with their blood token, discarding a swamp to draw a card. They do gain a life, so they are back up to 13. I probably should have just held up Cradle there. I'm only getting 1 extra damage that turn. Yeah. Do they have that plus a sacrifice effect? If they don't have a sac effect, this is fine. Is there a Bone Splinters in this format? Okay. Alright, that was A-okay. Serpentine Ambush is going to hit for a lot here. We could also just use it to kill the guest. So I can attack with everybody. Yeah, Bloody Betrayal, if they don't kill the Epicure, that's fine. We wouldn't have cradled there. Okay, my options here are to kill the guest, hit them for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 damage, or ambush the Epicure, hit them for 6, 7, 8, 9. I think I just want to hit them for 9. That seems really big. Because we make Epicure a 6/6 because its base power toughness is 5/5 and it's getting +1/+1. And we hit them for 2 extra damage. 6, 7 more puts them down to like 5 life, and then I have Cradle and Abrade later. I could Cradle right now and threaten to put them to 1 life. But I like having Cradle against removal to just really make sure Epicure kills them next turn. Alright, they do gain another life from the blood. So they're back up to 5. And they're just going to pass through the turn, okay. Attack with everybody. That is threatening lethal after we cast Abrade, so we can hold the Cradle to be safe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 after we cast Abrade, sure. Unless they have instant speed life gain here. Hero's Downfall, alright. Cradle of Safety, that puts lethal on board immediately. Countering the removal spell. Even if they Wedding Invitation to give the guest lifelink. And that's going to be game. It's going to be 2-1 now as we move into round number 4. Here we are on the play for game number 4. We don't have a blue source, which is a pretty big deal. But I can use Epicure's Blood Token to dig. I don't need the blue source till turn 4 for the wizard. This could be a slower, grindier, like Whispering Wizard potential hand. This is sketchy, but I am going to keep it. I feel like I'm just going to keep every turn 1 Epicure hand. And just cross my fingers and hope for the best. You gotta help me out, buddy. Alright, never mind, Epicure, we're fine. I didn't need you at all. You're useless. Get out of here. Mischievous Catgeist from our opponent. That is not something we want to see. Gonna let them draw an extra card every time they hit us with it. Probably need to just play a Lantern Bearer and pass, holding up multiple blockers. So they can't like use a removal spell and start getting that card draw going. I'll take a 1-for-1 trade, my 1-1 with no text into their 1-1 with a really good ability. They do get to disturb it, recast it later as an aura on something else, but that's fine. We'll worry about that later. Okay, I do need to find the 4th land for this Whispering Wizard. Maybe we'll chill of the grave one of their creatures or something. I don't think I'm gonna use the blood. I guess Sure Strike and Serpentine Ambush don't look that great. Ambush is actually just bigger than Sure Strike in this deck, so sure, I can cycle the Sure Strike. And then if I get a land, I can play it this turn. Since I haven't played land for turn. Alright, we didn't. So we'll just pass. Very good draw spell from our opponent. Draw 3, then discard a basic land. And that is what they do. 4 mana, Sorin is back for revenge. Alright. Well, I think Sorin wins this time because I don't have the mana up to tap down the vampire, then kill Sorin. Yeah, I think Sorin wins this time. I can tap down the vampire and hit Sorin for 1. Or I can just attack Sorin and then kill the vampire with ambush. That is absurd. Just run into 2 Sorin in a row. I know this format's balmy, but the exact same Mythic Rare Planeswalker bomb twice in a row? I didn't know it was that balmy.
My ways are not for the weak.
Poke the Sorin, drop a Whispering Wizard here.
I will not spare you.
We could have a Syncopate for 2. Be rough. Seems good. Yeah, I just can't do anything here. They're drawing an extra card every turn, making life-linking vampires whenever they need them. Now they're drawing 2 extra cards a turn, 1 from Sorin and 1 from the cat-like Binding Geist. Still have 3 mana up for counter spells. Alright, I'm just going to move on to the next game for my sanity. Alright, here we are now in game 5. On the play with a turn 2 Flame Breather feels exceptional. Nice Whispering Wizard for later in the game as well. We might just curve out with creatures so that we have all of our non-creature spells when the wizard is out, instead of just the Flame Breather. We'll play a Flame Breather and pass the turn. Okay, need to hit 1 land to make it to wizard, but I think we're still on the just curve out the creatures plan. See if we do hit the land on curve. Yeah, lots of blockers on the ground, so not like we're really getting damage in with the angers anyway. Yeah, we'll just pass. We're just hanging out till I play the wizard. Fearful Villager of their own for their 4/3 menace creature. Could bounce theirs here, but again, that's missing out on some potential Whispering Wizard value later. I think I'm just chilling. Ooh, another Flame Breather. Sure. Pass the turn. Yeah, it's pretty good. Train up the Sharpshooter to 2/5 stats and get the Werewolf in there. I'll trade a Combat Trick for Alchemist's Retrieval if they try to kill my Flame Breather here. Alright, damage resolves. And a Lightning Wolf is the play, a big dorky 4-3. Well, if there were any non-land cards I'm going to be hitting here, I think Flame Breather's probably the best one. Send in Werewolf, they double block, we trade the 4-3 wolves away. Feels like a better attacker than blocker, because this thing can get first strike on attacks. And this is starting to get a little sketchy. Probably just going to have to start going for the triple Flame Breather win of just slamming down all these spells. I mean, that's 9 damage in my hand already between these 3 spells. So I only need to chip at them a couple times with Werewolf to find lethal. But they only need to hit me a couple times to find lethal as well. Alright, Ancestral Anger is definitely bad for us. Trample and +1/+0. I get to attack for like 1,000,000 here. It's 12 damage on board. I can chump and retrieval, but then I have to recast Flame Breather before I play all these spells. I could just take it all and try to somehow find lethal next turn. Honestly feels like my best bet. They have some kind of gross combat trick here, we're dead. We are not dead yet. Child of the Pack. Okay, that's pretty gross. Whole board gets +1/+0. Another Flame Breather, oh my god. Well, they're very funny draws, but I don't think they're enough to compete with the gigantic beef my opponent has. We die too fast. I guess they don't have any trample anymore. But I don't have a good villager attack or anything. I only need to cast 4 spells with 4 Flame Breathers on board to kill them. But I can't survive long enough while keeping all the Flame Breathers on the board. So I could retrieval one of their creatures, maybe? For 2 mana? Which means I just anger this turn, I guess. Get a little harder. See what we draw into, and then hold up a retrieval for 2. Do hit a land. That doesn't really affect this turn. I guess I can cradle and then retrieval my own card instead. Could Flame Breather, retrieval my own card. Have 5 blockers up at 4 life. Is that going to be enough? Block, 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 block. Let the menace thing through. Retrieval a card. When I retrieval a card, I put them to 9. They're going to be at 9 life. If I can cast 3 more spells, I can kill them. And I know I have Scattered Thoughts to play, which is 1 more only. If I instead go for Villager attack, holding up Cradle, I can make it a 4/4, which isn't big enough to kill both of those anyway. I think I have to just play Flame Breather and hold up Retrieval. I need to hit like another Ancestral Anger or something to win this game. Will we block and retrieval our Villager here so we can keep all the Flame Breathers out? If they have any combat trick, we're just dead. I guess I have to retrieval a Flame Breather actually, because I need to block 2 4-power creatures. Yeah, I have to put a Flame Breather there to not die. Alright, they have the combat trick anyway. Wait, we go to 1 if they do this. Could've just killed us with the villager. Okay, I guess I'll go to 1 instead. They have 2 combat tricks? Okay, I guess I'll go to 1. Oh, I guess I'll go screw myself. Well, I think this deck was really fun. I don't think our draft pod had a better deck we could have drafted than this one. But we did get some rough games there, end up 2 and 3. It's probably reasonable. This seems like a 4-3, maybe 5-3 at best sort of deck on average. But obviously, like, our draft pod just had no bomb level power. And we had some rough luck in those games. We had that one game we drew more than half of our lands, only like a third of the way through the deck. And then in that game, we just couldn't get the 4th land quick enough. Making it look simultaneously like a deck that needed less lands in it and a deck that needed more lands in it. It's just kind of your luck sometimes. It happens in a game of variance like Magic the Gathering. Overall, really cool deck. It was fun to try to do the Flame Breather stuff. It's a fun deck. Obviously, when it pops off, it's pretty absurd. Like in our victories today, it was pretty nuts. But when it doesn't come together, it really falls apart. And you're just getting crushed by bigger creatures while you're trying to get all your Rube Goldberg machines going. Everything triggering all together and working together. So definitely a hard deck to get to function perfectly. But this was pretty close to like a great Kessig Flame Breather deck. It's not quite there. Again, I think this deck performed a little worse than it would on average. I think 2-3 is a little lower than average for this. I don't think it's a great deck, but I think it averages out to probably around a 4-3 run with this pile of cards. So sad to see it go 2 and 3, but it definitely happens sometimes. Cannot win them all. Well, that is going to end today's video. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more like it, make sure to stick around on the channel. You can like, comment, and subscribe to tell the YouTube algorithm to send you some more of these videos in your recommended feeds. If you'd like to hang out with me live, you can check out the Twitch channel in the link in the description below. And if you'd like to support the channel directly, you can check out the Patreon link in the description below. Other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.